Hello, pre-algebra class. So today our lesson is going to be on equivalent ratios. So if you recall in the last lesson, we went over kind of an introduction to what ratios are, comparison between two different quantities. I went through a couple examples. So I think I mentioned briefly in that video that ratios work like fractions in that we can reduce ratios by dividing both numbers in the ratio by the same number. And we have equivalent ratios. So for example, if we have the ratio 1 to 3, an equivalent ratio to that would be 3 to 9, because we multiplied each of these numbers by 3, by the same number, and that gives us an equivalent ratio. So for any given ratio, suppose we have 5 to 7. Equivalent ratios to 5 to 7, we could multiply them by 10, or multiply them by 2. So if we multiply both of them by 2, we're going to get 10 to 14. Then if we could multiply it by 3, we're going to get 15 to 21. If we multiply 5 by 4, we're going to get 20 to 28, and so on. We could keep going, and there are going to be infinite numbers of equivalent ratios for any given ratio. So far we've been using multiplication on these. So you see, like, we multiplied these ones by 3, and this one we multiplied them by 2, 3, 4. Division works the exact same way. So suppose we have the ratio 8 to 12. We could divide each of these by 2, and we would get a ratio of 4 to 6. Similarly, we could divide it by 2 again, and we could get 2 to 3. So these are all equivalent ratios as well. So I'll write that down. Let's go over a couple kind of exercises that you might see with these. So one thing that you're going to see is you're going to be asked if two ratios are equivalent. So suppose we are asked, are 3 to 7 and 9 to 18 equivalent? So the way that we check this is we see what we have to multiply the number in one of our ratios by to get the number in the other one. So to get 9 from 3, we need to multiply the 3 by 3, right? So let's do that. We get a 9. If we multiply this number by 3, that means that we also have to multiply the other number by 3. And we get 9 to 21. So since 21 is not equal to 18, these are not equivalent ratios. So let's do another example. Suppose we have our 2/7 and 8 to 28 equivalent. So in this case, what do we have to multiply 2 by to get 8? We have to multiply it by 4, right? So we multiply 2 by 4, we're going to get 8. And then similarly, we're going to need to multiply 7 by 4, and we get 28. So since those match up, we have yes, these are equivalent ratios. So 2 to 7 and 8 to 28 refer to the same thing. So that is how you figure out if ratios are equivalent. And let's do one more kind of exercise. Suppose we want to find an equivalent ratio. To 5 to 9. And you might be given that we have 15 to blank. So if we want to find out what's in this blank, what do we have to multiply 5 by to get 15? We have to multiply it by 3, right? And again, if we multiply one number in the ratio by a certain number, that means we have to multiply another one by the same number. 9 times 3 is 27. So that would mean that our equivalent ratio with a 15 would look like this. Let's do one more example. Suppose we want to find an equivalent ratio to 3 to 11, and we're given this time we're going to have on this side, we're going to have a 55 to blank. And we do the same thing, we're just going to look at what we have to multiply this number by to get this one. So to get 55 from 11, we're going to have to multiply it by 5. And to multiply, that means that we're going to have to multiply the 3 by the same thing. And we're going to get 15 to 55. So that is our lesson on ratios. So before we conclude, I just want to go on a brief little discussion of why equivalent ratios are useful to us. One situation in which I've used these, which relates to this class actually, is when I bake cookies for this class. So the recipe is for a certain number of people, but so suppose we have a recipe and it's made for 24 cookies. But in all my classes, I have lots of students. I have above 80 students. So I would want to get more in the range of 100, or let's say 96 cookies. So to get 96 out of 24, I'm going to have to multiply it by 4, right? For 24 cookies, I'm going to use a certain number of ingredients. So suppose I have like 2 cups of flour, for example, 2 tablespoons of butter, and so on. And since I'm multiplying the 24 by 4, that means I have to multiply all of these by 4. So essentially, it's just like a ratio. The ratio of the ingredients in the cookies is always going to be the same, but I'm going to have to multiply it by a certain number in order to make more of it. And that's like a real-life application of ratios. And there are many more that we'll explore going further in this course. So that's it.